This airline sold a plane ticket for $300, and after fuel, crew, and airport fees, it kept almost none of it. And this wasn't a one-time mistake. It happened on nearly every seat, on nearly every flight, for decades straight. And yet the company behind that barely profitable ticket is somehow worth tens of billions of dollars. Sit with that for a second. So here is the question that quietly breaks people once they notice it, and you can't unsee it afterward. If actually flying you barely makes a cent, then where on earth does all of this money truly come from? The answer isn't the flight, and it isn't the ticket. When it comes to the real business, you were never the product. To understand it, let's take the whole thing apart, piece by piece, and see how an airline really makes its money. Start with the obvious business everyone assumes it is, simply moving people from one city to another for a fee. On paper, it sounds like a gold mine, full planes, pricey tickets, and constant year-round demand from millions of travelers. In reality, flying people is one of the worst businesses ever invented, brutally expensive, and painfully thin on profit. Jet fuel, pilots, cabin crews, aircraft, airport fees, weather delays, strikes, and then jet fuel again. The costs never stop. For most of aviation history, the entire industry, all of it combined, barely managed to break even year after year. One of the world's most famous investors called airlines a death trap for shareholders, a place where fortunes quietly go to die. So when you hand over the cash for a ticket, you are not feeding some glorious money machine at all. You are funding the most expensive, least profitable part of a completely different business hiding right behind it. To find that hidden business, we have to travel back to the year 1981, where it all quietly begins. An American airline launches something that looks small, harmless, and honestly a little strange at the time, a rewards program. The pitch is simple: fly with us, collect points, and one day earn yourself a free trip. They call it A-Advantage, widely remembered as the first modern frequent flyer program the world had ever seen. Passengers absolutely loved it. Fly a little more, get rewarded a little more. It felt generous and it felt simple. But the airlines quietly noticed something the delighted passengers standing in line completely failed to notice. They had, almost by accident, just invented their very own private currency, one that only they controlled. And unlike real money, they could print as much of this new currency as they liked, essentially out of thin air. Creating a single mile cost the airline almost nothing, a fraction of a cent, a rounding error on a spreadsheet. But to you, that same mile feels genuinely valuable. And that gap between cost and feeling is the entire game. For a while, this was just a clever loyalty trick. Then the banks showed up, and everything changed. And this is the exact moment where the real machine, the one worth billions, gets quietly built. A bank desperately wants one thing from you, for you to swipe its credit card everywhere, on everything, all the time. And the airline happens to own exactly what the bank craves most: buckets and buckets of those magic miles. So the airline sells its miles to the bank in enormous bulk, in exchange for very real, very upfront cash. The bank then hands those purchased miles straight to you as a little reward every single time you spend. You feel like you're being gently rewarded for your loyalty, for being a good and faithful customer. But really, you are the reason the bank keeps buying billions of dollars of miles from the airline in the first place. Now follow the money carefully and watch closely, because it barely even touches an actual airplane. The airline collects billions in cold, upfront cash today for miles that cost it almost nothing to print. And one airline's deal with just a single credit card company can be staggeringly, almost unbelievably enormous. By 2023, Delta reported earning roughly $6.8 billion from American Express alone. And Delta has openly said it wants to push that single number even higher, closer to $10 billion a year. Remember, that is money flowing in from a bank. Not 1 cent of it came from actually flying anyone anywhere. Now here comes the part that honestly sounds impossible the first time you hear someone say it out loud. The little rewards program is often worth far more than the entire airline that actually owns and runs it. For years, nobody outside could quite prove it. Then the year 2020 forced all the hidden numbers into the open. The pandemic grounded the planes almost overnight, and revenue from flying passengers collapsed to nearly nothing. Suddenly, the airlines were desperate, scrambling for any cash they could find just to survive the next few months. So they went to lenders and offered up the one single asset the investors actually genuinely wanted to get their hands on. Not the jets, not the famous routes, not the airports. They pledged the frequent flyer program itself. And to borrow against those miles, they were finally forced to put a real, official price tag on them. and the price that came back stunned just about everyone who saw the paperwork. United valued its Mileage Plus program at nearly $22 billion for a loyalty scheme on paper. At that exact moment, that made the points worth more than the entire airline was worth on the stock market. American valued its own program in a strikingly similar range, so did Delta. This was not some strange one-off. The planes were bleeding billions in losses. The points, meanwhile, were quietly sitting there worth a small fortune. And that is the precise moment the disguise finally slipped, and everyone got a glimpse of the truth underneath. An airline, when you really look at it, is basically a bank that just happens to own some airplanes. Now let's quietly step inside the kind of room where a decision this big actually gets made. Spring of 2020, a long table, a group of executives who genuinely cannot pay next month's bills. On the wall in front of them hang two numbers, what the whole airline is worth and what the miles alone are worth. And slowly, one by one, every single person in that room turns to look at the very same number. They mortgage the loyalty program to survive the crisis. And, against the odds, it actually works. The planes had been the emergency. The points, quietly, turned out to be the rescue that saved everything. So why does this whole machine work so incredibly well? Look a little closer at the miles themselves, because miles quietly carry three enormous advantages, three that you never actually agreed to or signed up for. 1. The airline collects your cash right now, today, but only owes you a trip somewhere far off in the future. That delay alone is worth a fortune. In effect, it is a giant interest-free loan handed straight to them by you. 2. The airline alone decides what a mile is actually worth, and it can quietly shrink that value whenever it likes. The reward you were once promised can silently shrink while you sleep. Critics have a name for it, devaluation. 3. And this one is the quiet favorite. An enormous number of miles are simply never ever used at all. People forget them. They let them expire. And the industry has one cold, clinical word for all of it: breakage. Every single forgotten mile is pure, clean profit. Profit the airline already got paid for long ago in cash up front, value they alone control, and rewards you might, quite possibly, never actually claim. Put all three together, and it's honestly no wonder the points end up worth more than the planes. Now flip the whole thing around and take a long, honest look at your own wallet for a moment. When you chase a card mainly for the miles, you quietly, almost invisibly, start spending more to earn them. The bank pays the airline for those miles. Your everyday spending is the fuel that funds the entire loop. You thought the free trip was the reward you were chasing. In truth, you were quietly the raw material all along. And here's the twist. This isn't a scandal at all. Every single step of it is completely legal and openly disclosed. The real genius is that it hides in plain sight, cheerfully dressed up as a fun, generous, free little reward. The flight was always just the storefront out front. The quiet loyalty program was the actual store. So the next time an airline seems to be losing money just to fly you somewhere across the country, remember, it isn't failing at all. It's quietly running a bank and simply letting you fly on the side. You were never really buying a seat on a plane. Without ever knowing it, you were minting their money,